Welcome everyone to another installment of the Callie Chronicles, coming to you from my portable office. I spent a lot of time in this vehicle lately, and it's really a nice quiet place to do these narrations of these tracks. Today's video we have 3 tracks for you, track 3, 4, and 5 of the season. The first 2 aren't very long, but I still wanted to show them to you, and then we'll get into the third track, which is very interesting how it turns out. So let's jump into the first track. This is a young hunter hunting with his dad, shot a deer, buck with his crossbow. Now, neither one of them saw where the arrow impacted, and you'll see all the stats of the equipment they're using right here on my right. But they heard a loud crack, almost like the arrow hit bone. The deer ran off a short distance and then began walking and then bedded down. They could see it from their stand location. Not long after, another deer came through and jumped that buck up, and it ran off. Well, when it became nightfall, the dad started tracking the deer. He tracked it about 100 yards with a fair amount of blood, I guess. And he finally got to the spot where he couldn't find any more blood, but he found some what looked like stomach contents on the ground. So he backed out and called Callie up to the scene the following morning to pick up the track.
Find it, girl. Find it. I just need some blood to confirm it, though. Oh, wow. Callie's really acting like she's on a fresh scent. Not an old. This track's just over 12 hours old. Be nice to spot some blood, though.
Now, Callie tracked through the woods, and we think initially in the wrong direction, so we had to restart her. And this occurred several times. I restarted, and she would go in a different direction each time. And this is not uncommon, especially in a deer-rich environment, and there's a lot of deer in the area. He says there's a lot of deer on this property, and so it's a concern sometimes, but because it's a little difficult to get Callie on the correct deer. But we eventually got her what we think was on the correct deer, because 120 yards down the trail we found additional blood.
Callie. Hey, you ready? You ready? Hey, you ready? Let's find this deer, okay? Come on. Right here. Find it, girl. Find it. Yeah, I think we've been through here like 3 or 4 times.
As excited as we were to find more blood, that was the last blood that we would find on that track. We spent several hours out there tracking, and I would let Callie venture off for hundreds of yards, bring her back, restart her at last blood, let her venture again. Often she would take the same path that she took the previous track or previous time, and we just didn't find any blood. And so after several hours of tracking and searching, the father finally called the track.
Hey, Shane.
Go ahead.
Why don't you come to the north? I think it's a lost cause.
I'll be there in a moment.
So here we have Callie's first unsuccessful track of the season. A little bit of bummer, especially because we didn't recover a deer for a young hunter, which kind of stings a little bit. But anyway, had to put that track behind us and head off to the next track. This one here, the hunter called me that evening, and he was hunting about 100 yards from a road, and the deer ran off towards the road. Well, at nightfall, I got down and started tracking it, and he actually jumped that deer next to the road. It was bedded up on the embankment, and it ran across the road. The hunter inspected the blood, the bed, and his arrow, and they all smelled and had the look of a gut-shot deer. So he actually was just calling me for advice on what to do. And in our conversation, he decided to wait until morning and allow Callie to pick up the track.
She might just start on her own. I usually have to give her a command. You let me know when you... Is this where it went across? Alright, she's on it. No cars. I see blood. Wow, that's a fair amount. What's the population, the density up here? What's the deer density up to here? What's the deer density? Here's your deer right here. Good job, girl.
So as you can see, that was a real easy track for Callie, and in reality, the hunter could have gone there the next morning, just walked across the road and found that deer. But you don't know that until after the fact. And so he did the smart thing, backed out, and then he called for my advice, and then decided to have Callie pick up the track next morning. And ultimately, we found the deer. But it could have turned around complete opposite. The next morning, we could have went up in there, and that deer would have been 200 yards away and no blood, and the hunter never would have found it. And so he was just being extra careful to make sure that he recovered his deer. So he did, in my opinion, did the smart thing by getting a dog on the track. So now here we go to the third track. This is track number 5 of the season, third track in 2 days for me and Callie. The hunter shot this deer, and again you'll see the stats here to my right. Shot this deer slightly quartering towards him at 30 yards from an elevated stand. There was about 4 or 5 other deer. Now this hunter had this video of this hunt, so I want you to look at this video. It's not the greatest, it's not zoomed in tight, but you can kind of get a feel for it and what happens. So as you can see, the deer he shot kind of ran off along the field edge, and another deer ran away from him across the alfalfa field. But the deer he shot eventually joined back up with him, so now you got 4 or 5 deer running together over the hill. This is going to be a little tricky for Callie because without blood, she's going to have to figure out which deer we want her to track, and we've got to figure out if she's actually tracking the right deer. So we pick up the track that afternoon. This is now, I think, 15 or 16 hours after he shot the deer.
She could have doubled back though, because this is all swamp.
Yeah.
Here, so
and where did they come from, you think? Back here behind you somewhere?
They come out of the swamp over here.
Yeah, she could have made a big circle to get back to bedding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, we can get her started if you'd like. Sometimes she's not actually smelling where the deer walk. She'll smell it where it's drifting across the field, the scent.
so this is my last one.
Okay.
Right here. And this is about where she cut. So she ran this way and then went like this.
You'll see her branching out like this. She's trying to figure out which way the deer went. And she cut which way?
This way up.
Okay. Let's see where she takes us. Just try to hang back about 10 yards from where we're at. I mean, you can stay where you're at now, but as she progresses, because sometimes she'll come back, try to reacquire the track. Good girl.
Now looking at the satellite images of this track here, you can see Callie took us all the way across the alfalfa field, and we found blood right at the edge of the neighbor's yard and the alfalfa field, so we knew we were on the correct track.
Yeah, it's really dark. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Which means that deer's dead, and I think that being... Oh, hold on, girl. Hold on. I know you're anxious to get moving. Come here, girl. Come here. I'm gonna take her back to that blood and just start her and see if she takes the same path. She seems to be wandering a little bit.
After not finding any additional blood, I decided to restart Callie, and this is very common for me to have to do, to start her multiple times before we finally get locked in on the deer and she takes us to it. So we start Callie again at the last blood on the edge of the alfalfa field.
Find it. Easy, girl. Come here. Hey, leave it. Leave it. Leave it. Here. Leave it. We're not chasing cats.
That's the way.
You know what I'm saying? It looks like some good bedding right up in here. All three times she's kind of brought me around here. And I don't know if she's on a deer or if she's just following something else. I'll let her wander around, and then if I have to, I'll try her one more time on the track and see where she takes me. Here's some deer beds right here. Oh, God. Yeah, here's a perfect bed right here. She's gonna jump tracks. What she's gonna do? All these deer in here. What we got here? This looks like blood. You tell me. Yeah, there's more right there.
Yeah, that's blood. Yeah, for sure. Good girl, Callie.
I can't believe that. She's been trying to tell us all along. It's a hot one out here. It's not really hot, but I'm hot from walking. We've covered quite a bit of distance, and Callie led me to some deer beds, and one of them had blood in it, so that's a really good thing. But I am beat, so we're going to head over here to Last Blood and take about a 10-minute break, and then continue the track. Come on, girl. Find it. Good girl. Just trying to get her locked on the deer again. You got blood up there? Just radio up if you find blood in a different direction. What you smell, girl? You smell something? There's a house there that... See what this is? Yeah, that's like, I think I saw something back there on that leaf. She's throwing her nose up a lot. I'm hoping we're getting close. We got blood right here. No. No, that's not blood. Freaking spots on leaves fool me every time. Come here, girl. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come. Callie. Come. 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 I got blood right here at the fence.
Well, I was hoping this deer would stay in the swamp because we had permission to track that swamp area. But unfortunately, that's not the case in this track. It took a hard left and went towards the neighbors, and we confirmed that with blood right at the fence line, a little barbed wire fence with blood on our side and the other side we could see. So we had to temporarily halt the track until we could gain access to that property. As soon as we did, we continued the track, and it's crazy where she took us.
I got it. All right, girl. Find it. First I thought you were yelling you found it in the yard there. Where's that girl? This? They said okay.
Yeah.
It's almost like this track turned hot for her. She is really going nuts. So we gotta figure out where it went. No, that's dry blood. We didn't jump it, that's for sure. I mean, there's a lake over here. Where else could it go? Easy, girl. Come here, girl. Easy, girl. Come here. Easy. I mean, if it went across right here, we're gonna find it. Unless it swam the lake and drowned. Any blood? And that deer could have just gone through the back of these yards. And what if it ran off into the lake and then floated away? That would suck. I think your deer just took a suicide dive out into the lake.
Callie obviously had us on the track of this deer because we had blood right along the tennis court, and we knew that she probably was right in the direction she took us. And Callie was indicating this deer went across the road, and we again had to get permission from the homeowners along the lake shore, and she took us to the lake shore. And I jokingly told the hunter that I thought the deer had jumped into the lake. My real assumption was that it probably bedded next to the lake in some of these tall weeds that were growing there. We spent the next hour searching all along the lake shore, asking all the neighbors for permission that were home. Not all of them were home, so we had to skip a few houses. And then we kind of winded the swamp on the way back to the hunter's stand. And we were all a little perplexed about, where this deer could have gone. Callie had taken us 1,100 yards roughly to Last Blood, right there near the road. And so we eventually just had to call the track. Well, as it turns out, he got a call from a lady that cuts hair in the area. One of her clients came in and was just having casual conversation and told the stylist that you'll never guess what I found on the shore of my lake house. And he started telling her about the deer. Well, she's friends with the hunter, and she stopped him in his mid-sentence and said, I know whose deer it is. And so she got on the phone to him. He went out to the lake, pulled it onto the shore. You could see the entry and exit wounds on the deer, and he snapped a few pictures and sent them to me. So where did this deer go? Did it jump out into the lake and then sink and we didn't find it? Or was it hidden right along the brush, that's growing right along the lake shore? I don't know. I wish in hindsight that we had maybe taken a boat out there to look from the lake side looking back at the shore, because it was very difficult. The lake shore kind of in areas was like a sheer cliff about 3 feet tall, and there was a lot of grass and brush growing on it. So that deer could have easily been tucked right up under there and not been able to see it. Little conclusion, a little closure to that track, and for the hunter as well as me. I'm always, I'm like a hunter. Whenever you shoot a deer, you always want to, and you don't recover, you always want to know what happened to it. Whenever I track a deer, Callie and I go on a track, and we don't recover that deer, it's almost the same feeling. We like to get some closure, whether it's a trail cam image that comes in from a hunter saying he sees the deer, you know, a week later on trail camera to confirm the deer's still alive, or in this case, finding the deer washed up on the lake shore. So a little bit of closure there, and a very interesting track. And really proud of Callie how well she did. We took last blood was initially 30 yards from the hunter's deer stand, and we advanced that all the way across the alfalfa field, and then probably that same distance to its first wound bed that we were able to confirm with blood, and then from there right to the lake shore. So she had us on the deer. It's just circumstances beyond our control just didn't allow for us to recover it because we couldn't find it. You know, maybe it was submerged in the water, or it was just hidden by the brush on the lakeshore edge. So anyway, a fantastic news. Even though the meat was no longer any good, it was fantastic news when that hunter called me and told me that the deer had been discovered and exactly where it was at. I hope you guys are enjoying what I'm putting together here for you guys. I know it's a lot of work to do this, and first and foremost, I want to just say this, that tracking the deer for the hunter comes first. I'll never let the video compromise that. But at the same time, I'd like to document it and help you guys see what I see out there. It's very interesting to me. That's why I do it. And it's very fulfilling, especially when you can find a deer for someone. But if you have any ideas, any additions to the show, anything I need to take away or remove, feel free to comment at the bottom of this video. And also, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Hit that little bell icon so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. And until the next track, which I hope all the hunters don't need me, realistically, but they sure are fun to go on. We'll see you next time, I guess, whenever that occurs.